Well, hey there, couples. It's Brian Tracy once again, and we're on the third week in our Marriage Basics series where we're talking about these three framing principles for a healthy lifelong marriage. So, Tracy, we've talked about love and trust, and today what are we talking about?
We're talking about the fact that healthy couples keep talking.
Yeah.
That communication is something that you're constantly working on and doing in your marriage.
Yeah, and so the first two lessons were, lesson one was on love. It's very principle-based, and trust is got a lot of, principle to it, like thinking about what trust is, but getting more practical. And now we're getting super practical. In fact, this is a skill. We see a lot of couples that we mentor that really do want to love each other and really do try to earn trust, but they never actually learn the skill of communication, which is really sad, and it's so destructive in their marriage because of just a skill set. It's not a talent, right?
Right.
It's not
something you're born with.
Yeah, it's not something you're born with.
Right.
It's something that you can actually acquire. It's a skill that you can work on and get better at. Everyone
Absolutely.
can.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how to do that. But before we do that, what are the sort of unhealthy ways that people can communicate and have conflict with each other? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, because I think that's what happens in a lot of marriages is we go to those bad habits that then just completely derail us from having any kind of productive conversation. So the first example of a poor communication skill is escalation. That's the person that's just yelling, raising your voice. Maybe you're getting aggressive with your words, calling names, being accusatory. So when someone's escalating, that's not a safe place for the other person to want to be in that conversation. So it isn't a conversation. You're not communicating. It's one person, kind of the wrath of one person falling on another.
Yeah, and escalation really shuts down healthy communication. That's not not a good way to fight, right?
No, not at all.
All right, the second one then, so escalation, the second type of bad communication is withdrawal.
Right.
What's
so
that?
This is the opposite. Usually this is what happens in a marriage. One person's the escalator, the other person becomes the withdrawer. And that person's just closes down, shuts down, walks away, will not engage.
Right.
Now, some people are withdrawers no matter what. They just don't like conflict on any level, so they don't want to ever address things. But this is especially true when one person's really becoming aggressive with their words and the other person's just going to shut down. So again, there's no conversation.
And there's no resolution. So
no resolution.
A lot of times they don't ever come back to it. It just kind of fades away.
Just sweep it under the rug and move on.
Yeah,
but you're not really moving on.
You're not moving on.
Right.
All right, the third one, and again, be thinking about this for you. If you're watching this video, you're probably already thinking about which one you are, which one your spouse is. But the third one is
invalidation.
And that, to me, that's probably the ugliest one.
Yeah, and it can be a little tricky because I think some people are like, I don't invalidate, but we do. Because it can be even just a little thing like, oh, you're so dramatic.
Right.
Or it could just be a roll of the eyes.
Right.
Just kind of invalidating the other person's point of view or their perspective. You're condescending.
Right.
You're just kind of like, oh, honey.
And this is one, when we see this in other couples, if I see a man invalidating his wife, it is, oh man, it just makes me want to punch him.
Yeah.
Right? And I know and women can invalidate their husbands as well. And to me, it's the most, if you see just even a grain of invalidation in the way that you respond to your spouse, like, be honest about it and deal with it, because it's not healthy. It's not loving at all. I mean, none of these are loving, but the first two are a little bit more learned response. The third one, to me, is almost like a heart issue, right?
Yeah.
That you
want to hurt your spouse.
Yeah. So, you probably have heard of the 5 love languages. Well, these are the 3 fight languages, right? So think about which one yours is: escalation, withdrawal, and invalidation. Which one you tend to lean toward, and then really be aware that that's not healthy so that you can move on to some healthy conflict tips.
Right.
So let's share some of those.
Well, the first thing that you want to do in a conversation, it's an exchange of information. So if I need to have a conversation with you, I need to come to you with I feel because kind of statements. This is how I think, this is how I feel. I'm not coming at you accusing you, saying you are this or you did that, because that just puts you on the defensive. It's just me stating how I feel and why I feel that way.
Yeah, and we actually talk about this with couples. We say, I know it's going to sound cheesy.
Yeah.
It's going to feel cheesy when you're trying to have a conversation, especially if it could be on a touchy subject, is, hey, honey, could I just tell you how I feel right now? Because again, they can't say, no, you don't. Well, of course, yeah, this is your feelings, right? You're not blaming, you're open. This is a great way to open up the conversation.
Right.
Here's how I feel, and here's why I feel that way.
That's right.
And by the way, don't say, I feel that way because you're a jerk.
Right.
Right?
Don't use the word you.
Yeah, I feel that way because this is how it's been communicated to me.
Or this is how I read that.
This is how I read that. So again, this is such a great relational skill to develop, is you give them the benefit of the doubt because you're trying to open up a conversation.
Right, because again, I think you have to think about, how do you want someone to come toward you when they're upset with you? That's who you need to be then coming towards your spouse. No one wants to feel like you're under attack right out of the gate.
Right.
I mean, defenses are going to go up, and now it's on. I mean, if we're really trying to get good communication skills, then the first thing is just to give your thoughts and feelings that you feel. Let your spouse hear that.
Okay, so the second tip then is for me. So if you come to me and you say, I feel this way because, then my job is to be an active listener.
Right.
And an active listener means that I'm going to, instead of try to come right back with my rebuttal, right? I'm going to say, so what I hear you saying is this.
Right.
Let me see if I've got it right.
Yeah. Your first response is to make sure you understood what I said.
Yes. It's not to get my point across.
Right.
It's to communicate that I'll have a chance to share what I feel.
Right.
But right now I'm trying to understand what you're saying so that I can communicate it back to you.
Correct.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's say that I say, so Tracy, what I'm hearing you say is blah, 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 blah. What if I'm wrong? What do you say?
I would say, not quite. Let's try that again.
Right.
This is what I said.
Right.
And then you could try and repeat it back. And again, the point isn't just that you can repeat back, so what I heard you say is, and say it in a bad attitude.
Right.
The point of the active listening is that you say, I acknowledge you, what you just said about how your feelings are hurt, and this is why. Now let's have a conversation about it. Doesn't mean you agree with it. Doesn't mean that you don't have your own perspective. It just means you're allowing me to feel like I'm heard.
Yeah, and what some people do this, they take a phone or a spoon or a squishy toy and say, okay, here you have the phone, so you share.
I get to talk.
And now what I hear you saying is, so whoever has the phone gets to be communicating. Maybe that sounds really cheesy.
Listen, if it helps you to not go into those bad fight languages, then do whatever it takes.
Right. Okay, so let's say we've done those first two steps. What's the third step?
So then you want to get to solutions. So what do we do? How do we change this for the next time? What did we learn from this situation? How can we both be better? So that you move forward then. There's kind of a plan of action. There's some action steps. You both take ownership of where things went wrong. Here's how I'm going to do things differently next time. And lo and behold, we actually gained momentum out of that conversation.
Yeah, that's good. So couples, there's our third principle. So principle 1 was about love. Principle 2 is about trust. And this third one is super simple. It's just a skill. The skill of communication, which is included when you're in conflict, right? And so try to identify those fight languages that are just inherent in you and try to practice those new skills of communicating. It might feel forced at first. It might feel strange at first, unnatural. But over time, I think you can really begin to do that, and it'll transform your marriage, and it'll help your marriage to really be happy and fruitful when you're on the same page and you can communicate. And so again, use these questions below to talk about this last principle. And let me just remind you that on our website, FLEXTALK.org, we have all kinds of content in the marriage section of our website, or FLEXTALK.org/marriage. And also FLEXTALK.org/parenting. So we've got all kinds of content for marriage conversations to help you have conversations, just like we're doing in this video. Parenting conversations, there's stuff on there for your kids, for teens. And so we encourage you to use those resources, they're all free, to really talk about anything and improve your marriage, improve your family.